What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the third, I just hit my mic, I'm sorry, but third episode of the Big Five podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Morello, co-host Jake Copestick. Cope, we had a hell of a Big Five weekend. How we doing?
Good. Tired because I've been watching so much basketball. Trying to catch up from everything that happened this weekend. But yeah, there was a lot of games. Actually, in Penn's case, they did a double this weekend. They did a game Friday night against Missouri, and then they played a home game at the Palestra yesterday afternoon. So now we're kind of getting into the grind of the year. It's like you have teams that are playing 2 games in 3 days. St. Joe's played Friday. They played a game. They had a game tonight. Temple had a game Friday. Villanova had a game Friday. They played the night. So we're getting into the grind of the season. You know, we're in the thick of it now. We're not taking a week off per game. Lots going on. So I'm busy, but I'm happy the basketball's back. So we got a lot more to talk about, a lot more to look forward to. So let's get after it.
Absolutely. I don't even want to waste any time, except for the fact that, listen, Cope's got a new mic. He's got a new ring light. He's becoming a professional here.
Yeah.
We love to see it.
Apologies to anybody who listened to the first 2 episodes. Apologies if your ears hurt after.
Oh, it wasn't
My
that
mic was
bad.
horrible. It was fading in and out. It was not very good. But I got a new one now. So hopefully those days are behind us and you can actually hear what I'm saying without it fading in and out. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, without further ado, I don't want to waste any time. We're going to get right into it, and we're going to get right into the game of the weekend. You've all been waiting for us to talk about it. Temple versus Villanova at the Liacouras Center. And Cope, I'm going to defer to you because you were in attendance for this one. The upset on Broad Street. Temple come out with a victory, 68-64. It was a back and forth game. It was close the entire way. But I don't really feel like Villanova fans and Villanova itself actually really felt like they were going to win that game. I don't think Villanova fans really thought like, man, we're just going to get that killer punch that you kind of talked about in the last episode with LaSalle. Did you kind of feel that same way watching it there?
So yeah, I mean, it's obviously as soon as the game tipped off and the game started, like Temple really controlled the tempo and controlled this game for a lot of it. I spoke about last time when Temple lost their opening game against Wagner. Jamil Reynolds had 2 early fouls. They couldn't pound the ball inside, and they went right into Jamil Reynolds both in the first half and the second half. They had the size advantage. They had the strength advantage. Jamil Reynolds is a monster of a man. So Temple, they pounded the ball inside right away. They got Jamil Reynolds going, and then it started to open stuff outside for them. Caleb Battle really is lightning in a bottle. When he's on, like the whole team feeds off him. The crowd got loud. Damian Dunn was hitting shots, but really the key to this game was Caleb Battle when he could come off the bench and provide all that offense for you. But this is a tough game. Temple made Villanova work for everything in this game. Caleb Daniels couldn't miss on Monday. And they stuck Jaleel, and Temple put Jaleel White on him, who's a great athlete with good size and long arms to be able to bother guys and get his hands in the passing lane. And Caleb Daniels had to work for everything in this game. This was not, a game that Villanova was going to go into and roll over Temple like they honestly have for the last decade. This is the first time that Temple's beat Nova in 10 years. So, no, as soon as the ball got tipped off and this game started, Temple really controlled the pace right away. This was not a game that Nova was going to run away with. And, got to give Temple credit. You even said our last episode, we're going to find out the mental fortitude of this team and to see how they play against Villanova. And although I don't recommend you do this all the time and you drop easy games and you win the big ones on your schedule because that's going to hurt you come March, that was a hell of a way for this team to respond. They played up to the level of their competition. They played up to the level of the stage, being a Friday night Big Five game. It was on ESPN. A lot of people there. It was loud in the Liacouras Center, but I credit Temple because they responded. They didn't turn the ball over, and they weren't as lazy as they were on Monday night getting killed on the boards. They actually beat Villanova offensively on the glass, and that gave more opportunities, and they fed Jamil Reynolds. It was a really, really impressive response from Temple, as Aaron McKee said in the locker room. He challenges guys to step up and respond to Monday's loss, and that's as good as a game as you can play if you're Temple.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that. I was like, do they win this game if they beat Wagner? Like, are they a little overconfident if they beat Wagner and then go into this not with the same fire? But I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I wish we beat Wagner, but I'm also very glad we beat Temple. We beat Villanova rather. We can see the highs and lows of this team. Let's get the lows out of the way and keep going with the highs. We have a lot of competition, or not we Temple has a lot of competition on their schedule, and they need to play up to it. And I think they will. One thing I will note about the Temple defense, they showed up. They didn't show up. Well, they didn't show up as much as they could have against Wagner. There were some miscommunications that we talked about, some of the things leaving open shooters, but they showed up 8 steals, 6 blocks, 13 forced Villanova turnovers. That's going to win you ball games. That's going to win you ball games, especially against tough opponents. So good job for them. Yeah, I mean, proud of Temple for the way they bounced back. I know we had talked about the mental fortitude that they needed to show, and they showed it. As far as Kyle Neptune's squad, you know, it's a tough loss against a rival. I mean, obviously they're not in the same conference or anything, but they're the Big Five. They're Philly schools. They're Philly schools. But they, yeah, I mean, it was a good battle, and Nova will bounce back too. Nova will. They're a good team. They have good players, and they're going to get healthier too, especially once Cam Whitmore comes back. So, not worried about Nova. If you're a Nova fan, do not worry about this team. They lost to a talented team. They had a team that underperformed against Wagner, and they were hungry and they showed up. So you just have to make sure that Nova wants them more in the future. So that's the takeaways from that game. I don't think it was anything crazy.
If I could just make one more point about Nova, not to cut you off.
No, you're good.
They're only going to get healthier. Justin Moore is going to come back. Cam Whitmore is going to come back. We've gone over that. But to me, this was a game where Villanova really missed a guy like Colin Gillespie from last year. And obviously, of course, it's very obvious. You miss a guy who's, an All-American, all Big East Conference caliber player, it's going to hurt you. But, it to me, like the fact that they don't have another creating guard of his caliber. Look, he was a great player. It's a very hard guy to replace. But is it Chris Arcidiacono? Is it Mark Armstrong? They need a table setter here. They need someone who's going to consistently get into the paint and get paint touches. Daniels, Dixon, Slater, not to say that those guys aren't, but they're not the same. Hey, I'm going to get a piece of the paint and kick the ball out. Like that's really not what their role was last year. And then to kind of get thrown into that, like you could tell that Nova's kind of missing an everyday starting ball handler here. I really thought that Mark Armstrong was going to start the year as the point guard. It turns out being Chris Arcidiacono, and I feel like they're just missing the guy to set the table for them. When Temple locked up, it was hard for Nova to get open shots. They had single-digit 3-point attempts. I don't know if I've ever seen that from a Nova team before. Temple locked up the 3-point line. They played very well in the perimeter. They were playing the catch aggressively. They were making guys catch it far out. And to me, this is when it looked like Nova's started to hurt from all the guys that they're missing, their departures and their injuries right now, because they just needed a guy that could set the table for people, get in the paint, create stuff. To me, they were missing that, and this is a game where it kind of exposed that for them, that they didn't have a true ball handler creator that could get in the paint, create for others, kick out. They just kind of missed that. That's not to say Nova's a bad team, but for me, it kind of exposed that a little bit and was like, hey, they're definitely missing Gillespie, and they're missing an everyday ball handler like a Justin Moore could be for them.
And look, and also the other thing with that too, like a lot of times on teams like this, your guards are your leaders. And not to say that Caleb Daniels can't be a leader, not to say that, Justin Moore's obviously still in the locker room, even though he's not playing, but you kind of miss that second coach on the floor. And they had that a lot. They had that with Ryan Arcidiacono. They had that with Colin Gillespie. They had that with Jalen Brunson in past years. I don't know if they have it at this moment on November 14th when we're recording this, if Caleb Daniels and Eric Dixon are that guy right now, but they can be because they've been in the Villanova system for the last few years. But they're missing it right now. They're missing, like, if Justin Moore's on the floor, I don't know if Temple wins this game. One, because of the talent, but also because of weathering the storm. It's a big deal. And, Kyle Neptune, first time coach at Villanova, first time in a major school like this. So, he needs to also be that voice too. So it's an adjustment period for Nova, but it's not to say that they can't get there, because I think they can. And I think they will. They're still a very talented team, like I said. So that's our 2 cents from that one. It looked so fun to be there, though. I'm jealous. I was in New York, but it looked fun. It looked fun. All right, we're gonna quickly go over the Houston St. Joe's game. There isn't really a ton to go over. I mean, listen, we kind of kind of anticipated this was going to be a little bit of a bloodbath. You're facing the number 3 team in the country, almost made the Final Four, made the Final Four the year before, to getting some guys back that we talked about. And we were unfortunately correct. 81-55 was the final there. Little stats for me that I wanted to point out before I turn it over to you, Coach Stick. Just two, and these are stats that, with this much disparity, you're not going to win games, obviously. They were out assisted St. Joe's 17-3, which is brutal, just absolutely brutal. But it also just kind of shows the tenacity that the Houston defense has that we've grown accustomed to seeing, which also leads me to the next stat: 16 St. Joe's turnovers, which is a lot. And like we said, it's a younger team, it's an inexperienced team, a lot of turnover there. Their first game of the season going against a Final Four contender, a national championship contender. So it was to be expected. But what did you see from this game?
So yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. We talked about last week when we previewed this game that this is a brutal draw for your first game. It just is. If you ask me who I thought my national champion would be right now, I would tell you it's this Houston team. I mean, they're in a very small group of teams that can legitimately win it all this year. You brought up some good stats. The assist just shows you that Houston locks them up. They play very good pick and roll defense. They rotate well. They move as a team well on defense to not give guys open shots and leave rollers open, leave guys on the weak side open. And then two other stats I want to throw out to you. How about 17 points off turnovers for those Houston Cougars and 18 second chance points? It was a vintage Houston Cougars performance. They were crashing the glass on offense. The first half especially, they were getting out in transition, getting easy buckets. And I bring that up also because I wanted to talk about St. Joe's in the second half of this game. I was really impressed with their effort, specifically on the defensive end in the second half, specifically the first 10 minutes. So obviously all the turnovers, the points off turnovers, the easy buckets and runouts for Houston. Joe's just could have rolled over here again to a very, very good team who's in a different stratosphere than pretty much any other team in D1. Like I said, they are in a very small group of teams that can legitimately win it all. But this team does not shoot the ball particularly well in Houston. And in the half, they don't want to play a slow half court game. That's not what they do, is play offense in the half court. They don't shoot the ball particularly well. And I liked what St. Joe's did because they pressed them. They played a 1-2-2 press. They put Rasheer Fleming at the top, who, by the way, it's a shame he didn't play tonight with an ankle sprain against Lafayette because he played very well in this game. He knocked down both of his 3-pointers.
Yeah.
He played very well on the defensive end. They put him at the top of the press when they decided to put the pressure on. And then in the half court, I thought Rasheer Fleming and Kasper Klacek played very well, switching, hedging, helping out on pick and rolls. And in the half court, this team really their half court defense and their pressure defense combined, the first 10 minutes of the second half, they legitimately outplayed Houston. They just were outplayed by so much in the first 20 that it really didn't matter. But they fought hard. They played very well in the first 10 minutes. Houston's just really good. Newsflash. They almost made 2 straight Final Fours. This is pretty damn good team. Jarris Walker was awesome. He had 23. He shot 10 of 14. Really good freshman at IMG. This guy's going to probably be a first-round pick this year, maybe a lottery pick. And it just shows you how good this Houston team is. They have a bunch of guys returning, and now they're adding 5-star freshmen on top of it. This team's deep. Another guy I told you to look out for last week was Jawan Roberts, who's stepping in for Josh Carlton, who graduated. 19 points, 12 boards, 8 of 9 shooting. Nothing to see here. Just another Houston performance. Play. Exactly, it'll play. So I was really impressed with the way St. Joe's defended, specifically the first 10 minutes of the second half. It's just that this is their first game of the year. They hadn't played anybody yet, and they had to play a Houston team who already had a game under their belt, who was one of the best teams in America. So there's a lot of good Billy Lang can take from this game. They just ran into a really, really good team, kind of went how we expected it, but was not all bad. There's definitely some positives that the Hawks can take from this one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a tough draw, like you said. It's brutal, and it showed. But at the same time, there's a lot they could learn from this, and it's up to them whether they want to choose to learn from this or they can choose to dwell on this and see oh, this is how our season starts. Great. No, don't do that. Build from this, and I think they will. I think they have a lot of talent on Hawk Hill. So they can definitely build off of this and we'll see what happens going forward. All right. Next game I want to get into LaSalle Wagner. And I was watching this game back. It's the one game that through this weekend and work and everything that I really, really had time to go back and watch. So I will start off this one. A few notes that I have here. So their effort much better than Temple showed on Monday night. Just in all facets of the game, rebounding, they they had a size advantage over Wagner. It was a guard heavy game on both sides, but they did have a little bit of size advantage with the Drummond brothers. And they both played extremely well. One thing I also saw was defense to offensive transition. Their transition was outstanding, especially in the first half. That's how they got a lot of their points, and they got a lot of open looks, and that's what you want. The Salle team clearly wants to play a little fast, like you said, guard heavy team. So I think Fran Dunphy wants his guys running down up the court, and that's not a bad call when you have smaller, quicker guys. So that'll definitely work. Nickelberry and Brantley were fantastic again. I think they're going to be a really good, really fun guard combo to watch this year. I'm really, really excited. Nickelberry obviously is the star of the team, and he's taking all the shots, not all the shots, but he's taking a lot of the shots, and he's the one handling the ball all the time. But I think Khalil Brantley is also going to be, he's going to be a stud. He's going to be good. He's going to be very good. Yeah, they were banging down low, and they needed to because they had the size advantage, like we just said. One thing I saw in particular, passing. They were always looking to find the open man. I cannot say that Temple did the same thing to a certain extent when they played Wagner. So I was really impressed with that. Help defense too. Help defense was exceptional by LaSalle in this game. They were rotating well. They were going down off screens. They were switching well. I was very, very impressed. And Wagner, to credit them, they came back in this game. They were down 15 in the first half, and they came all the way back later in the second half. I think it was about 3 or 4 minutes left. They got it to within 4. It was 63-59. It was a very, very close game. Wagner fought all the way back, but St. Joe, or not St. Joe's. I have a thing of notes, and I just glanced at SJU. LaSalle played very well down the stretch and weathering the storm. They did what they can. They hit their free throws, and Fran Dunphy has this team in a good spot. There's some experienced members of this team. There were members of this team. This was a test for them. This Wagner team, a lot of people were looking down on it after they beat Temple, and they were like, "Oh, Temple lost to this Wagner team. They're not bad. They got some players." So I was really impressed by LaSalle, especially coming off the loss against Nova, where they did not play all that bad. It was a good showing by Fran Dunphy's crew. What did you see from this game?
So yeah, I want to echo a lot of things you just said, specifically the defense, and specifically I just want to talk about how well they played in the first half of this game. To go up 40-26 at halftime, to give themselves a lead, because you're right, like this Wagner team's feisty, man. I get it. They're an NEC team. They're small. They don't have a lot of height. These guys are physical, and they're tough as nails, man. This team, all 5 guys are going to try and crash the glass. All 5 guys are capable of going up and fighting for boards. Like, they just want it more than you do. And this team was in a hole for a little bit, but once they started forcing some turnovers, they started hitting some shots. They started getting a lot more energy. They started guarding all the way up again on defense, which they pretty much pressed the whole game. I love the ball pressure that they have. But LaSalle played well enough on defense, the way they rotated. Particularly, I want to talk about the way that these Wagner guards like to back down people, even though they're not that big. They like to take their opponents down the post. And whether it was Andres Morera, whether it was Brantley or Brickus, these guys walled up and played really tough in the paint, forced some tough shots. So, yeah, I didn't know that. They forced some turnovers. They got out in transition, and they were playing very, very unselfish. That was a really, really good offensive game, really all together by LaSalle to find the open guys. They ran a great set on the first play of the game to vacate the paint and get Brantley going, which, by the way, like, good. I said it last week. Good luck trying to stick with this guy, man. Good luck trying to stick with him, whether he's cutting on a back cut and he gets by it, or he's got the ball in his hands and he dribbles around you. I mean, this guy's got some serious quickness to him.
I don't mean to interrupt. There was one play that I saw with Brantley where it was a set from an out of bounds play, I think, and they gave it to, I want to say it was Brickus. It might have been Nickelberry, and they had Brantley going up toward the top of the key, and then he just stops on dime, cuts back toward the basket, and they find him, and he dunked it. He is just a specimen. He is
Yeah,
just quick.
he's quick, man. I tried telling you, man, this dude's got some serious burst and some juice. Going side to side, like his change of direction, his change of speed, his change of pace. I mean, it's very, very tough to stay in front of this guy. Um, I will say in the second half, it started to get away from LaSalle a little bit. Like they had a lead that was almost at 20 that dwindled down to 4, like you said. And another thing was this Wagner team out rebounded LaSalle again, just like they did to Temple. They beat them 17-6 on the offensive glass. And that's when it started to get away from LaSalle. They did a very good job in the first half of not only playing very good defense, forcing tough shots, but they were limiting the Wagner to just one shot on the offensive end in the first half. They started to get away from that a little bit in the second half, but they played well enough in the first half to give them some cushion. They were able to weather the storm, whether they were turning the ball over, whether they were missing shots. They were still able to weather the storm here against a really tough, physical, and feisty Wagner team. So good for Frey Dunphy. I was watching the stream. It was homecoming. A lot of people were there. It sounded like it was pretty loud. So good for him that he was able to get his first win. This team certainly deserved it. They played a very good first half. They played a very good game. Maybe not as complete as he wanted it to be in the second half, but really, really good first half from this team. And Wagner just kind of couldn't pull themselves out of the hole that they put themselves into in the first half. So credit to LaSalle. We both said they would avenge Temple and their loss on Monday. They end up getting the win Saturday and getting in the win column this year. So good for the Explorers.
Yeah, and the other thing going back to weathering the storm is part of how they got to, the lead dwindling down was they unfortunately went cold, which will happen in the game of basketball. You have hot streaks and you have cold streaks, and they went cold late in the first half, early in the second half. And like you said, like we both said, they had to weather the storm, and they did a great job with that. And obviously, when you have as experience of a coach as Fran Dunphy, you're gonna get good leadership there. And it clearly poured onto the basketball court. So good for them. Good for them getting in the win column, like you said. I'm proud of the Explorers. They showed some heart out there. Yeah, I'm really happy with the result there on Saturday afternoon. All right, we have a couple Penn games to get into because we haven't touched Penn yet. So first of all, Penn versus Missouri on Friday. Uh, they did not pull out a victory there. It was they had fought back. They were down. I think it was 15-3 at one point, like very early in the first half. They got into a hole. They dug themselves back though. They had tied it a little later in the second half. They ended up losing. Um, it was a tough game. Jordan Dingle didn't play his best. He's probably still a little hurt, as we've been talking about, and we'll get into that with the Townsend game too. He actually played better there, and we'll talk about that. But what did you see from this Penn Missouri game that kind of led the Quakers to a loss there?
So admittedly, this is like the one game I didn't get to this weekend. I'll kind of jump to the Townsend game. I was at the Temple game Friday. I was out all day Saturday. So I
I didn't get to it
unfortunately did
either.
not
It's
get
okay.
any film on the Missouri game, but I did watch the Townsend game today. And you know, Slacker had another good game, but Jordan Dingle did not score in the first half of this game. Now he had 20 points in the second half. Awesome. He's one of a few guys that are capable of having halves like that in this game. But they need another presence here on offense. If they can't really just rely on Dingle and Slacker to bring him home every night. I'm not saying they need another 30-point score, but how about some guys knock down some shots here? With the exception of Dingle and Slacker here, like the rest of the team was shooting like 3 of 15 from three. Max Martz got into foul trouble. He fouled out. He had 3 or 4 fouls either at the end of the first half or early into the second. Like he got into foul trouble, and he's a guy that can stretch the floor and shoot for him. And he had 2 threes in this game, but they just need some offense to come from somewhere else. Nick Spinoso had a good game. He had 11 points. He played very well. Liked his activity on defense to block a couple shots and mix it up and grab some rebounds. But they need some offense to come from somewhere else. And then also defensively with this team in the Townsend game. Now, Townsend's a good team. They're one of the best mid-majors in the country, a lot of experience. Their starting lineup, 2 grad students, 2 seniors, and a redshirt senior. A lot of guys coming back. They're very, very experienced and one of the best mid-majors in the country last year. They got upset in the CAA tournament. A lot of people thought that they would win with the record that they had. So they're a good team. Penn's played a tough schedule. You would have liked to see him pull one out, but this Townsend game, for me, they had way too many times where they were giving up open shots to a team as experienced and good as Townsend. You just can't do that. Nicholas Timberlake's been having a good year. He had another good game. yesterday on Sunday, knocking down threes as this whole team did. And in the first half, like Thousands get a lot of offensive rebounds. I feel like it's something that I harp on, but like, hey, if you can get easy second chance points, you're gonna win more games than you lose. So I look at this game. It's discouraging that Penn falls to 0-3, but they played a tough schedule. I commend people that do this. You're only going to be better for this when you play tough teams earlier in the year. But this team needs some offense to come from. So they need to know where it's coming from. They need another steadying presence here, besides Jordan Dingle and Clark Slacker that did have good games. But to me, it comes down to defense, comes down to rebound, and they just couldn't get it done against a good team. They got a game. Look. The good thing is you still got more games. It was a very, very tough stretch of three they had to start the year, but they're going to have to pick it up on both ends here. They need more people to contribute on offense, and then defensively, they got to do a better job locking up here.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is a little bit of a problem right now. They gave up 80 to Towson. I forget. I don't know why I'm blanking on the final score of the Missouri game, but they let up a bunch of points to Missouri too. And obviously they got absolutely blown out by Rick Pitino's squad up there in New Rochelle, Iona. So, it's a problem so far. I do want to talk about Clark Slacker though. He is playing out of his mind. He is he is performing really, really well. You wouldn't really expect it. He's not the biggest guy on the floor. He's not the most intimidating presence in the world, but he's got a really good shot. He finds open space to shoot the ball. I'm really impressed by Clark Slacker so far. And Dingle will get healthy. He's still finding his groove. I don't think with the injury, he probably didn't practice as much as he wanted to in the preseason, if he was being affected by this injury. So, he's probably still adjusting. He's probably still getting his cardio up. And it's tough. It's tough for a player to go from being injured to going back in, even if you're not 100%, which I don't think he is. It's tough, but he'll get healthy. And like you said, the Quakers have played a tough schedule so far. They're three very quality opponents. They may not be high major. Well, Missouri's a high major opponent, but the other two may not be high major opponents, but they're still very quality opponents. And they played tough games. Oh, I mean, yes, they got blown out by Iona, but they played a tough game against Missouri. They played a tough game against Towson. They will find their way. Just like we were talking about Villanova, they had the loss to Temple. That's a different story, but just like that, they will find their way. They're going to play in the Ivy League once conference play starts up late December, early January. They're still projected to be the best team in the Ivy League. That's their path to the NCAA tournament. They're going to hopefully win the Ivy League and get in there. So I think this part of the schedule will benefit them greatly, because once they play those teams that are, obviously they're in the same competition because they're in the same league, but if they play better competition now, I think it'll benefit them the wrong one. They'll be battle tested, and teams like to see that, or people like to see that entering February and March. So, it stinks that they lost these games, especially they were close games, and they probably didn't play the best basketball that they can. But they'll be okay. They'll be okay. So, well, I'm not mad at the Quakers. They played okay. So we'll see what happens there. But that's enough for the review of the games. We have some games coming up in the early part of the week that I want to get into. 2 games today when you're watching this on Tuesday. Very good matchup, Temple versus Vanderbilt. Obviously, it's fun. We just talked about the Quakers going up against a high major team from the SEC. Now Temple's having the same thing against this Vanderbilt squad, who has not been too bad the last few years. They've had some people in and out, of course, but what are you looking forward to in this game?
So obviously, like anytime, even if it's Vanderbilt, I know they're not a great team in the SEC historically. The last few years, they haven't been. Ever since Jerry Stackhouse has been there, they've been pretty disappointing and really haven't been able to make any sizable leaps here in terms of improvement. But anytime you can play a Power 5 team, it's a good test for you, especially in your own building, to play against Power 5 athletes and a Power 5 squad and a guy in Jerry Stackhouse who's coached a lot of basketball, whether it's been with Vanderbilt the last few years or even in the G League with the Raptors 905 and in the helping out with them. So this is a good test for them. Anytime you can play a Power 5 team, they're going to play Ole Miss also from the SEC this year in their non-conference slate. They have Rutgers too, so they got a couple high major teams here that they're going to play. But this is a Vanderbilt team that's good. They can't look this game over. I just said, like, when we were talking about Temple, don't do this where you keep dropping games to teams you should beat, but then, win the games that you should, because Vanderbilt's 0-2. They lost to Memphis. They just lost by 12 to Southern Miss on their own floor. They're gonna be pissed off coming here. So you can't overlook them. They have to do exactly what they did against Villanova. They played lights out defensively. They played very well on the ball. They played very well switching. I need more of that. You need. It's hard in college to be consistent with these young college kids, but if they can be consistent defensively like they were against Villanova, they will win a lot more games than they'll lose. So I'm just going to look for them to be consistent. I don't want to see them come out slow, pound the ball inside again, get the, stay out of foul trouble. But that seemed like a pretty good recipe for success. Pound the ball in early. It's going to open stuff for you, and work an inside out game. It's going to open up stuff for Damian Dunn and Caleb Battle to create shots. So I'm not really worried about Vanderbilt in this game. I'm more worried about how Temple is going to play, because we saw how well they can play Friday. We also saw how potentially bad they could play Monday. So now it's like, hey, we saw you play really good against a great team. You played subpar against a team that a lot of people aren't expecting a lot out of. Now let's see how you follow it up. Let's see how they can deal with success a little bit. Because, when you talk in terms of tournaments and winning big games like this is the biggest win in the Aaron McKee era with the Villanova win. Let's see how they follow it up here, handle a little bit of success, handle themselves in the national spotlight. So that's what I'm looking for. Consistency from Temple, specifically on the defensive end. We'll see how they follow up a huge win on Friday with this game tomorrow night.
Yeah, and they have the talent to do it. Like you said, they just need to be consistent. Aaron McKee needs to get his guys to stay in the same mindset that they were going into to the Villanova game, which was, we're pissed off, we're hungry, we want to attack, we want to, show them what we got. Just because they won against Nova does not mean that they should let up on that mentality. They should have that mentality the entire season, no matter who they play, because they're going to play some really good teams, especially in the American. Obviously, we talked about Houston earlier. There's really good teams in the American, and they have a chance to be up there too, but they have to continue to always have that hunger. And like you said, it starts against this Vandy team. They should beat this Vandy team. There's no reason why they shouldn't beat them. They just need to come out with that same hunger, that same fire, and they need to do the little things right that they didn't quite do against Wagner, that they did do against Villanova. They need to continue to do those things. So I do think Temple will pull out the victory, especially being on the home floor again. But they just have to not make sure this is not a trap game, kind of like you said. They can't overlook Vandy. They are a high major team. So that's that. But I do think Temple wins this one. All right. We're gonna go to another game, same day. LaSalle versus Queens. This is not Queens, New York, where I was born. I just was a little bit. I was passing through. No, this is Queens NC. So I don't know a whole lot about Queens. I know they are new to Division One. What can you tell me about Queens? And should LaSalle expect to win this game too?
Yeah, so I'll drop some knowledge on you about Queens. I believe they were Queens College at one point. They're now Queens University of Charlotte of North Carolina. So this team, the last 7 seasons in Division Two, they are 163-30, winning over 84% of their games. 7 straight Division Two tournaments, 4 Sweet 16s, a Final Four in 2018, and they returned 10 of their top 11 guys from last year. So this is a team that has a winning core. They've won a lot the last couple of years. Unfortunately, their coach, Bart Lundy, left to take a D1 job at Milwaukee this year, but in comes Grant Leonard, who's been an assistant there since 2013. This team likes to run. They like to run. They like to get out and transition, play at a very, very fast pace. The one guy they lost from last year, a guy named Jamari Smith, who averaged about 17 points a game for them, he transfers up to Murray State. He's actually Jabari Smith Jr.'s cousin, now plays for the Rockets and was a top. So he's the one guy that departs, but they still have a lot of talent here. 2 guys in particular I want to touch on. Their point guard, Kenny Dye. If you haven't heard of this guy, you're gonna hear about him tomorrow, and you're gonna hear about him soon. This guy is a very, very good point guard who can shoot, who can score, and is an exceptional passer as well. They actually beat Marshall at home in their first D1 game. He had 24 points, 7 boards, and 10 assists. And they have a center named Gavin Rains, undersized. First of all, I just want to point out this team only has 3 guys listed at 6'7" or taller, so they're
Oh wow.
very, very small, but they're extremely physical on the glass and with rebounding. He had 14 points and 13 boards. He's their starting center, standing at 6'7". So this is a small team, but they're a physical team. They're a fast team. They like to play defense. They have a very good point guard in Kenny Dye, and this is a team that they have not lost a lot. They're not going to go into this game thinking, oh, this is a bye game. We're going to go up to Philly, lose, whatever. They're coming out here to win. Like, this team is not, the last couple of years, like I said, they won over 84% of their games in Division Two. They're not accustomed to losing, man. This is a team that legitimately thinks they can have a Bellarmine type performance like they did last year. Speaking of that, they're actually joining the ASUN this year that Bellarmine is also in. But this isn't a team that's just going to be a slouch and is going to take a couple years to be competitive. Like, they think they can do it right now. So this is going to be a really interesting game. I was thinking about being in attendance for this one, but I'm going to tell you in a little bit. I'm probably going to be in attendance for another game coming up this week. So there's that. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. This is a Jamaica Classic campus game. In a couple of days after LaSalle finishes this one up, they're going to be headed to Montego Bay, Jamaica, to play Wake Forest and play there during Feast Week. But this is an interesting game. I think this is a really good opponent for LaSalle. They're not big. The Drame brothers are going to have to be big in this one, and they are probably going to have to play a lot because they're going to be going up against a team that's not really going to play with a natural center. So, rebounding again is going to be big, but at the same time, it's going to be a guard-heavy game. It's going to be a guard-heavy game. We'll see who can make shots, who can defend, who can not turn the ball over. But this Queens team is no slouch. Saw them play a little bit against their game against Marshall. This is a good team, man. There's a good, feisty, competitive team that's going to compete on both ends of wants to get out. So this is going to be a really, really interesting game here.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like another guard heavy game for LaSalle, which they just played against Wagner. So I think they're, I don't want to say they're used to that, but at least they had some experience in it in this young season. Was also going to mention the Drame brothers. Once again, they will have to step up. I do think they're obviously capable of it. They were on a team that went to the Elite Eight last year. They come in here to Philly at LaSalle, and they've started playing well so far this year. So definitely look for that. Look for the transition game because LaSalle really played well in transition, especially in that first half against Wagner. Look for that to happen. I'm also looking at Khalil Brantley. I think, with you talking about that kind of speed and guard play from Queens, I think he can thrive in this kind of game because I think, he's probably the best athlete on that team. I don't know if that's saying too much. I don't think it is on that LaSalle team. So I think he can be kind of the neutralizer of Queens's athleticism at the guard spots. And I'm looking for, this is going to be a fun game. This is going to be a track meet, I think. So definitely looking forward to that. I am going to say LaSalle pulls this one off, but I do think it's going to be another close game for the Explorers. So we will see. I'm really, really excited. It's going to be a good one. We will also get into that game you're going to go into at the end of the show, that you're going to at the end of the show. But we do have one more game to go over that's in this portion of the week. Albany is taking on St. Joe's. I also don't know a ton about this Albany team, but I do know that St. Joe's, this could be a good bounce back spot for them after, getting the doors blown off them by Houston. But a lot different competition now, going from national champion potentially to a lower major team. So not that I think this is going to be a letdown spot for St. Joe's, coming from the highs and the lows, but do you think this is a good bounce back spot for them?
Yeah. And they actually played a game tonight. The night we're recording this is Monday night, which, if it wasn't for
Correct.
our busy schedules, we would have had some previews out for you, had some technical
Correct.
difficulties trying to upload one. So we'll make sure that we don't miss any Big Five games in the future and we can get some stuff out to you. But St. Joe's, spoiler alert, they did win their game against Lafayette. It was a close one tonight at Hagan Arena, but they pulled it out. So now they have another one at home. They're going to be playing Albany, who's led by Dwayne Killings, who's in his second year at Albany. He served at Temple for 10 years in a variety of different roles. He was the director of basketball operations, was an assistant coach for a while. So was at Temple from 2006 to 2016. He's now in his second year as the head guy at Albany. His team struggled a little bit in conference play last year, but they have some players here. Aaron Reddish from Norristown, who's Cam's related to Cam Reddish. He's on this team and was a scorer for them in a couple of their games. But they played 4 games this year. They lost to Towson in a close one. They lost to Siena, and they beat 2 non-D1 teams this year. So, when you factor all that in, this is a game that St. Joe should win. Uh, Potential injury to keep your eye on though for St. Joe's. I talked a lot about Rasheer Fleming and how well he played in the Houston game. He actually missed tonight's game with an ankle injury. He suffered the second half of that game. I tweeted something out about this on the Big Five, our Big Five account, but that's an injury to continue to monitor. He played a lot of minutes. I think he played well in the first game to warrant him getting more minutes. But with him out with the ankle injury, just don't know what's going to happen right now. So we'll keep that in check because he gives this team a dimension to play smaller and to kind of play without a real center and can stretch the floor a little bit. So without him, you're going to see more Obina. You're going to see more Jansen. You're going to see more Kasper Klacek being, a 4, maybe even a 5 sometimes. So we'll see what happens with that injury. For sure, it's definitely going to be something to monitor. But this St. Joe's team should build off their win tonight against Albany, a team that, like we said, they're 2-2. They don't have a D1 win so far this year. Hopefully that doesn't change and St. Joe's can beat them in their next home game. But to me, yeah, this shouldn't be a game that St. Joe's drops. Eric Reynolds is still playing pretty well. Lynn Greer had a rough game tonight, so it should be a nice bounce back spot for him as well. But this is the team that they should beat for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely. Eric Reynolds definitely key here. Obviously, we think he's their best player probably. So him stepping up again will be paramount in their chances of a victory against Albany. But like you said, I do think they should probably pull this one off. They do have the talent to beat a team like this. I'm not saying they said it's the most talented team in the world. Obviously, they have their holes, but this should not be a game that they lose. And if it is a game they lose, then we should probably start asking some different questions, even though it's early in the season. But I'm glad they pulled off a victory today. Hopefully Lynn Greer could play a little better against Albany too, because he's also going to be vital to their success this season. So we'll see. That's games on Thursday. So we'll have to look forward to that. And we'll be able to react to that later in the week. So I'm really excited about that. Now, what is this game, Mr. Copestick, that you were looking to attend this week?
So I'm hoping to attend Philadelphia's version of the Crosstown Shootout tomorrow at the Daskalakis Athletic Center. Man, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I am so sorry if I'm not, but I've never been here before, and I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing that right. I'll just call it the DAC because I know it's what a lot of people call it. But I'm hoping I can be at Penn at Drexel tomorrow. Basically, Philly's version of Cincinnati versus Xavier. Should be a good game. You have a Drexel team that is coming off a win at home against Old Dominion. You have a Penn team that really is in need of a W here. Drexel's they're not a slouch. This team just made the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. They still have 2 guys remaining from that team. Amari Williams, who's a big center from England, and then Coltrane Washington, who's a nice scoring guard who's been there for 4 years. So this team's got some players. Penn's really going to have to stop Amari Williams. This team loves going inside to find them and just have him dominate if you don't have a guy that can stick them. So should be a good game. Penn actually, they have never won at the DAC before. They're 0-2 on the road playing there. Unfortunately, they have not played each other since 2015. But Penn also hasn't beat this team. Not only are they 0-2 at the DAC, they haven't beat Drexel in the last 6 tries. So big game for Penn because like we said, they had a tough stretch of 3 games. They're going to play at West Virginia. Like their tough schedule is not exactly over yet. But you really can't afford to drop the 0-4 here if I'm the Quakers. History clearly not on their side for this, but yeah, should be. I'm really looking forward to getting this tomorrow if I'm able to do it. I've never been to the DAC. I've been to all the Big 5 schools. Have never been to the DAC before to check off the City 6. And also, we got to give Mr. Spiker his shine here. We have not yet talked about his team yet as much as we've talked about the other Big 5 schools. So we'll see what happens. We're probably going to have to incorporate a lot more Drexel talking here if they win tomorrow. But I've never been to the DAC before. Like I said, I've hit all the other Big 5 spots. So I want to go see what the DAC's all about. I'm looking forward to finally checking that one off my list tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm definitely gonna watch that game on TV. I just got back home from a weekend away, so I think I'm gonna chill tomorrow night, make some tacos for Taco Tuesday. But I will be watching anywhere I can. I'm not sure exactly where it's being broadcasted to, but I will find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So we're gonna watch that game. Definitely needs to be a bounce back spot for Penn though. Not sleeping on Drexel. I think Drexel's definitely a team that can play, but Penn needs this game. Penn absolutely needs this game. Their tough schedule, like you said, is not over yet. So definitely look for them to bounce back. I want to see Jordan Dingle play a little more efficiently too. He started playing more efficiently against Towson, but the first 2 games of the season not so much. So I think that is a key for tomorrow night. So we will see about that. Um, I'm trying to think of anything else. I do listen real quick because this was on. Okay, yeah, no, the Philadelphia football team lost. I wanted to make sure we snuck
Wow.
that in there because we didn't know because there was
Wow.
about 3 minutes left when we started recording.
Yeah.
32-21 was the final there. So they actually lost by double digits on their home field to the Commanders. I don't think Carson Wentz was going to do that though. I think that's all Taylor Heineke. So neither of us are Eagles fans, so we don't really care that much, but we care because we're football fans. So Eagles, Copestick are no longer undefeated. There is no longer an undefeated team in the National Football League, which is pretty crazy. But also, it's a Philly, and this is a Philly podcast. So Eagles fans, I'm still not that worried. You guys are a really good team. So yeah, that's all I got though. What do you got to end the silly little show here?
So nothing basketball related. I feel like I'm watching so much basketball the last couple of days. I'm just like almost
I
burnt
get
out for the
it.
day. The whole day just been
I
just
get
trying
it.
to catch up on these games from the weekend, man, and put some good stuff together. But just want to say a quick shout. This is long overdue. I want to shout out my friend Brian Tanis for making our logo. Um, I am not an artist by any measure. I'm not exactly like someone who critiques art, but I think he did a pretty damn good job on our logo. So wanted to give my friend Brian some shine for helping us out. We'll make sure we tag him in this tweet. He's a big graphic design guy. He likes doing it in his free time, and doing freelance stuff. And he said he really enjoyed working on it for us. And I think he did a good job. So we'll tag him if you ever want to get in contact with him and need a logo done or something like that. He really enjoys it and likes doing that in his free time and doing freelance stuff. So just wanted to give a shout out to Brian. I'll make sure we tag him at the bottom of this tweet. That way you can throw him a follow. You need any logos done, any graphic design needs, hit him up for sure. Because I think like I said, I think he did a really good job for us. So just wanted to give a shout out to our guy Brian for making our logo.
Yes, Brian, thank you so much. Listen, I think it's a great logo too. So if you have any graphic design needs at all, please make sure you hit up Brian because Brian's the man. Listen, I know my way around Photoshop a little bit. I know my way around Illustrator a little bit. I think out of the two of us, I'm the more media-ish guy. I mean, obviously it's what I went to school for and whatever, but I don't know graphic design like that, let me tell you. So to have the logo the way it turned out, Brian, you did an incredible job. Thank you so much. So everybody go follow Brian, say thank you, Brian. Please, everybody say thank you, Brian, because he's the man for that. So yeah, I think that's gonna be a wrap for episode number 3 here. A lot of basketball that we covered this weekend, but a lot of basketball ahead. And of course, you're not gonna find better coverage of that basketball in the city of Philadelphia than these two knuckleheads right here. So make sure you give us a follow, Instagram and Twitter. We're still working through the audio only versions. It said Spotify was up on Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout's the hosting site that we use. It said it was up. I'm going to check after the show. I've been on the road for the last few hours. I literally came home, set up, and recorded this real quick. I took my notes earlier today. So I'm going to check that. But if that is up, make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And of course, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Like, comment, all that fun stuff. And yeah, we're gonna have a great week of basketball, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. As always, we love the support that we've been getting, and we will see you next time.